Alkebu-Lan Revivalist Movement presents Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM and GalaxyAfiwi.com, the only de-brainwashing station. Weekly discussions and live debate on all issues affecting the African community at home and abroad. Tune in Mondays 8 to 10 p.m. and have your say as we talk it straight and make it plain. It's live, it's hot, it's scintillating, it's real. It's Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only de-brainwashing station.
Tendai Mwari, be thankful unto God. Greetings, Galaxy family. You're tuned into Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Hosting tonight's program is Brother Shakara and myself, Sister Kai. It's Monday, the 4th of July, and it's 6 minutes past the hour of 8. Alkebu-Lan is known for keeping its finger on the pulse of the community, addressing the most pertinent and controversial issues some radio stations just won't touch. So keep it locked on 102.5 FM, www.galaxyafiwi.com. And join us for the next 2 hours by calling
07923 334 515. You can text now on 07399 359 614. Once again, I'll just read the calling number. Log the calling number now, kings and queens. 07923 334 515, and you can text us on 07399 359 614. Our subject is After Brexit, what is the Black Agenda? Part 2.
Tendai Mwari, yes, sisters and brothers, you will join this discussion this evening because I'm sure you've got a viewpoint you'd like to share, and a number of people were trying to call in last week, didn't get the opportunity. Well, the lines are going to be opened again, and we're going to open up quite early as well because we want to hear from you. But let me first introduce my co-host, Shakara. Tendai Mwari, greetings and welcome, Shakara.
Greetings, Tendai Mwari Babakai. Greetings to all the Africa Speaks of Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio family. African power for all African people. Ankh Ujar Seneb, life, prosperity, and health. Hotep, Rastafari, kings and queens. Tendai
Mwari. So, how's your weekend been, Shakara?
It's been let's deal with the whole week. It's been an interesting week. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I'm as a tennis enthusiast. Wimbledon has started, so I've been watching the Williams sisters do their thing. I haven't caught up on the Venus match today, but I know Serena went through, so we give thanks for that. You know what I mean?
I'm going to say I think Venus won, but I tell the truth, it's only second-hand news I'm hearing. So
Venus got through. Well, we give thanks. It's the Williams vibration is certainly, you know, abounding in the atmosphere, kings and queens. And you know what's beautiful? We understand that Venus Williams has been suffering from an ongoing illness for the last few years, and so it's good to see her and her sister through to the semi-finals for the first time in quite a number of years. You know what I mean? So we just give thanks for that. You know, I'm a Williams sisters enthusiast. My mum actually went to go see Serena play yesterday. So you know what I mean? So yeah, enough things.
So did you see her on television then?
Yeah, I did briefly, but on the iPlayer, because as you know, we was in fellowship yesterday. But yeah, I got a glimpse of her on watching the match back on the iPlayer. So we give thanks for that. You know what I mean? Big up mommy, you know.
Tendai Mwari. And as usual, our resident guest, he's a spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement. He's also co-chair to the Interim National African People's Parliament, and he is UK ambassador to the UNIA-ACL, Papagavi's organization, under the leadership of Baba Singo Jarawa Baye. And it is his birthday today. Tendai Mwari, greetings and welcome, Brother Leader Mbandaka.
Tendai Mwari, giving thanks and praises. I bring greetings as always in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of Alkebu-Lan, Mama Africa, and the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and in a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people upon the face of Mother Earth. The Rumbidzo Kunamwari Ye Africa. To the God of Africa be the glory. It is a joy to be an African and a joy to be on Galaxy Radio for Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan, giving thanks and praises. And
said with the UNIA if you wanted. You wouldn't be wrong.
And to emphasize as we always do, how important it is to be speaking to the most important and precious people upon the face of the earth, the sons and daughters of Africa. We're just glad to be ministering to you. It's good to be on the earth on this day of my birth, the anniversary of my emergence in this dispensation of time. And I just give thanks and praises for the breath of life and for all the lovely people that I know as family, as community, as nation, as the African race. Giving thanks and praises. Tendai Mari.
In particular, we have to big up Mama and Granddad. You know what I mean?
Well, yes, without whom I would not be here. And of course, their mamas and granddad, their mamas and dads, and ad infinitum. So we hail all the ancestors of my personal lineage. Give thanks and praises for life and for the spirit and essence and purpose of life. Tendai Mari.
All right, Tendai Mari, Kings and Queens.
So, Brother Leader, how old are you now, or is it a secret?
Huh?
Is that a secret?
No, I'm not very secretive. I'm not secretive about my numbers. I've been on the earth in this dispensation for 54 years. This is my 54th birthday. Tendai Mari, our Earth Day, as we say. Tendai Mari.
Tendai Mari.
Giving thanks
May
and
you
praises.
see many more.
We pray.
Yes,
we
indeed.
pray. The most important thing is that the work continues. I've been on Liberation Road for now 33 years. Next year will be 34 years, officially. Been established on Liberation Road, and I treasure every moment, and will just continue by the grace of the Almighty, Mwari Nyakusika, and with the Mokoro, our great ancestors. I will continue to serve my people until the day that I ascend into the realm of the ancestors. And even then, once you pour the libation, I'll be running to serve in this phase of the cycle of life. Tendai Mari.
Tendai Mari.
Yo, this is Swiss So Solid. Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Galaxy 102.5. Blaze the fire.
Details as well, or even Brother Robin Walker.
It's a fact of life.
Galaxy Radio.
24-hour radio. It's a fact of life. 24-hour radio.
102.5. Our Philly station.
Yes, indeed, Kings and Queens. We also have, as announced last summer, the Mosiah opening ceremony is fast approaching, Kings and Queens. The month of Mosiah is fast approaching. Friday the 5th of Mosiah, which is the month you call August 2016, at the Chestnuts Community Centre, 280 St Anne's Road in Tottenham, N15 5B. Kings and Queens, a number of performers, including the Alkebu-Lan Children Soldier MC, and a keynote address on scientific Garveyism and the power of black manhood, Kings and Queens. That's once again the Mosiah opening ceremony, the official opening to the entire month of Mosiah. Friday the 5th of Mosiah 2016 from 6:30 at the Chestnuts Community Centre. For more information, do check our website alkebulan.org/Mosiah 2016. Once again, that's alkebulan.org/Mosiah 2016. Yes, indeed, Kings and Queens, that's the Pan-African Investment Day paid, brought to you by the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist Movement Youth, also known as the Army. We are putting black group economics into action, and we invite you to join us. Once again, the details can be found at alkebulan.org/paid, Kings and Queens, alkebulan.org/paid. We ask you to share that page and the information, and also the video advert associated, Kings and Queens, with our community. We want to put black group economics into action, and you can check it out at alkebulan.org/paid. Tendai Mari.
The Pan-African Investment.
Tendai Mari, Kings and Queens. Log the numbers, the all-important interactive number 07923 334 515. You can text now on 07399 359 614. We will be opening the phone line earlier than scheduled, or usually scheduled this week, Kings and Queens, so do stay tuned for that. But tonight, Our question is, after Brexit, what is the black agenda? We continue to look at the fallout of Brexit, the UK's decision to leave the European Union. The outcome has caused the resignation of the Prime Minister, a cutthroat campaign to replace him, civil war in the Labour Party, and now the resignation of the UK Independence Party leader Nigel Farage, asserting, quote, "I've done my bit. I couldn't possibly achieve more." Unquote. The political turmoil has also spilled onto the streets amidst a surge in what has been termed celebratory racism, a new kind of hostility towards anyone who is different, as the idea of, quote, Englishness becomes exclusively white and Christian. As a result, racist attacks have soared from anything between 57%, according to the True Vision website, and a whopping 2,700%, as reported by anti-racism charity, the Monitoring Group, including anything verbal, from verbal assaults to firebombings. Barrister Peter Herbert, chairman of the Society of Black Lawyers, said, quote, "Britain has returned to a level of racism, violence and fear not seen since Enoch Powell's River of Blood speech." Unquote. The Newcastle National Front unveiled a banner declaring "Stop immigration, start repatriation." That could be a Pan-Africanist slogan, kings and queens. Unquote. Given that 3/4 of black voters voted to remain, it is possible that this outcome influenced the decision. Ironically, at the time when, according to author Dreda Say Mitchell, quote, "people of African and Caribbean heritage become comfortable with being British," unquote, open racism is on the rise. In terms of responses, one that has been notable is the coalescing around the now beleaguered Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn with formations such as Africans for JC Values and Momentum Black Connection, MBC. As MBC media officer Mark Wadsworth outlines, quote, "Jeremy has the best record on anti-racism, anti-imperialism, black self-organization and black self-determination of any Labour leader since the foundation of the party. And that is why he is so popular in our communities." On the issue of black political representation, we note the unprecedented amount of African, Caribbean and Asian MPs he appointed to his shadow cabinet, unquote. However, others may argue that after the 5 decades and more devotion to the Labour Party, with only being patronized and ignored as a reward, others are making the case for self-determination. One such attempt is the Interim National African People's Parliament, iNAPP, that lists as its aims and objective to be an effective, constituted and mandated voice for Africans in the UK, to define, defend and develop the best interests of Africans in the UK through self-affirmation and institution building, as well as campaigning and lobbying, to mobilize all Africans in the UK to join and play an active, progressive role in the iNAPP, to forge principled and operational unity across social, organizational, ideological and religious lines for community empowerment and capacity building in every aspect of life, to investigate the causes and implement solutions to the social injustices, disadvantages and maladies which disproportionately affect the African community, especially our youths, to develop constructive engagement within British society and to build and raise the profile of the African presence, past, present and future, so as to progress the aims of iNAPP, to ensure that iNAPP strategic priorities are maintained through succession planning with future generations via role modeling and education programs for the development of our youths. Those are the iNAPP aims and objective, kings and queens. So tonight we ask the question, after Brexit, What is the Black Agenda? Part 2. Are we now comfortable being British? Will we see a level of racism, violence and fear not seen since Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech? If so, how can we combat it? Is organising around Jeremy Corbyn's values the answer? What will happen to this movement if he is deposed? Is an autonomous formation preferable or desirable? What is iNAPP's position on Brexit? Our very special guest, as already introduced, Kings and Queens, is the spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, co-chair of the interim National African People's Parliament and UK ambassador for the UNIA-ACL, the organisation of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, brother leader Mbandaka, Kings and Queens. Our guests are also you. This is the People Session, Kings and Queens, and do log the all-important interactive number 07923 334 515. You can text now, right now, on 07399 359 614, Kings and Queens. Somebody's already calling in the number. We're asking for no calls at the moment, Kings and Queens. We will let you know when the calls are to be made, but right now you can text in, okay, Kings and Queens? This is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio. Okay, don't worry, brother leader.
Don't worry.
The streets are still talking, brother leader. Hot debate last Sabbath, and people really did appreciate our debate last Sabbath, brother leader. You know what I mean? So first of all, we want to give thanks to yourself, to Councillor Martin Seaton and Sister Oracle for bringing that to the people. If brothers and sisters want to read our show spec or listen back to our show from last Sabbath, you can also check alkebulan.org/Africa Speaks Kings and Queens and listen back to that show. Brother leader, any reflections? Because our spec begins with an outline of what the hell has been going on in British Parliament, also known as the Game of Thrones right now, brother leader. Everyone's fighting over the throne over the last Sabbath. Any particular reflections that you have? Anything that stands out to you on the happenings of Babylon or Parliament, as the case may be, over the last Sabbath?
Well, first of all, I should have made an announcement when we were doing our announcements that the community law circle that was announced at the last iNAPP General People's Assembly, for those who attended, an announcement was made of a community law circle gathering for tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. I am letting the community know that that event will not be taking place due to the fact that iNAPP, the Enoch of iNAPP, the interim National Organising Committee, needs to meet about some very important and urgent matters that we need to discuss and address. So that meeting is not taking place tomorrow evening. That public meeting will not be taking place, but the interim National Organising Committee will be meeting in the same place to discuss some very important internal matters. Tendai Mwari. With respect to the question, Brother Shakara, two things I want to highlight for the moment. One, I hope we realize by through our observation of how these people have conducted themselves, from whether on the side of Remain or on the side of Brexit, and I'm talking about the leaders of the British political establishment, that we can see that there are a bunch of cutthroats. Right throughout the campaign, one side was telling us how the other side were a bunch of liars and were deceiving the people and were spreading rumors and so on, much of which proved to be true. This wasn't just one side or the other, it was both sides. And then we've seen since then the kind of cutthroat, underhanded behavior that has gone on between people who were campaigning together. You know, what Gove did to Boris Johnson, what Johnson did to Cameron, and it just goes on and on and on. So I hope we realize the insidious nature of British politics that is euphemistically referred to as democracy. You know, Britain is always bigged up as the mother of all democracies. Yeah. So this is the example of how the mother of all democracies conducts itself. So I say that now as a backdrop to my second point, which is that my concern, in fact, there are two parts of that concern as far as in respect of our community. One is the extent to which, when we listen, and I've been trying to hear as many discussions as possible involving African people. So even some of the mainstream, so-called mainstream radio stations, the white radio stations, quite a number of African people have been calling in. And what is really, really painful is to hear how we express our views and our analysis on the EU referendum. You know, we're more often than not, we're taking one side or the other, and we understand that 75% of Africans who voted in favor of Remain. I don't even know if we fully understand what the European Union really represents. What's its origin? How did it come about? What were its aims and objectives? How has it impacted the lives of African nations and African people? I don't know how many of our people who have voted actually concern themselves with that, have actually tried to do any research and establish the facts concerning the EU, its history, its purpose, and its impact on Africa, African people, etc. Yeah? But the way they speak very much in the terms of the political leaders of the British establishment, whether they're speaking for Brexit or they're speaking for Remain. They're regurgitating the same arguments that you hear from either side. And there's very little in the way of an African-centered, or let's say a black perspective, that you hear from people who are calling in these radio stations. That worries me a great deal. The other thing that worries me,
you're saying that the black agenda seems very low on the radar of even black people in this country.
Well, yes, we speak in broad, general, generic terms. Right. And we seem to regurgitate the rhetoric from Remain or Brexit, depending on where our sentiments lie.
So it appear that Dreda saying Mitchell is correct then. More of us in this day and age are identifying with the identity of being British.
Worryingly, that seems to be the case. Right. And that's very, very worrying. You can bring me back to that if you wish. But I think that's very, very worrying. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to say something on that in due course. Yeah. But the other point that concerns me a great deal, and I hope brothers and sisters, and especially members of organizations, Pan-African organizations, and leading members of Pan-African organizations, I don't believe, and I include the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, it is a strong position of mine and this movement that we have not collectively provided the leadership to the African community that we should have provided on this issue. Mm-hmm. By that, what I mean is there should have been, throughout the campaign, a meeting of heads of organizations, Pan-African organizations in particular, within the African community, discussing the nuances of the EU referendum debate, and in particular, its relevance to us as African people. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there would be a range of views, and that is what would make the discussion, those discussions, so important and so rich. Yeah. That you have different perspectives on the issues. Because I've heard some saying that we should vote Remain, some saying that we should vote Brexit, and others saying that we shouldn't vote for either. Yeah. It would have been good for us to have had closed-door internal discussions among ourselves, as well as open community discussions. Call the community together and lead discussions to help to develop our African-centered perspective on the EU referendum and its relevance to us as African people.
All right.
That hasn't happened, and I'm deeply disappointed that we did not do that. And as I said, this is not a criticism of any one or two organizations. It's all of us, including the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, because we did not initiate that either, and we did not provide that either.
All right. Well, hopefully our show this evening will go some way to remedying that that deficit, brother leader.
I was going to say, giving some credit where it's due.
Yes.
The Uhuru movement
Yes.
did have a couple of community meetings, but those were like a couple of weeks before the actual voting, but still they did it, and we commend them for that, and we also had them on our show.
Yes.
The Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement has had, I think this is the third show that we're having now on the EU referendum. Yes. Which again is important, even though two of those shows was actually after the voting took place, but still the after the after voting analysis is also very important.
Some would say more important, brother leader, in the sense of that the implications of the vote go well beyond the actual phase of the voting. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes it can be argued that the black community has a very short memory.
Yes.
In terms of politics and what takes place in politics. So,
well, it's still highly topical. You switch the radio on, you switch the TV on, and it's Brexit.
Brexit to the world.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That must have implications for us as African people.
Yes.
What are those implications?
Yes.
And you don't hear much by way of discussions. Mm-hmm. And when you do hear African people, I listened to Brother Adebayo show yesterday, and all the discussion was you would never know, except you are able to detect the accents. You would never know that these are African people who live in a historically oppressive society, discussing an issue within the context of us remaining an oppressed and exploited people. There was no talk about the impact of Britain on Africa, the impact of and the implications of the European Union on the African continent. Nothing about that. Nothing about that. And that's very, very worrying. Tendai
Mwari, brother leader. We read out the iNAPP aims and objectives earlier. And one of the aims and objectives says to investigate the causes and implement solutions to the social injustices, disadvantages and maladies which disproportionately affect the African community, especially our youth. And I can also say that in the YNAP, the International African People's Parliament Youth, one of our aims and objectives is to raise awareness regarding the social conditions of African people in this country, because we find that the awareness of our condition is generally very low. In terms of, if we were to look at, our understanding of our standing in economics and mental health and prison and so on and so forth. So one thing that we have to do is raise the awareness.
And as a result of that, we are a very weak political force. It has to be said. In this part of the world, we are a very, very weak, and that is, when you compare where we were at in the 1980s. I came on Liberation Road in the 1980s. We had a very vibrant and dynamic movement in this country, and we were impacting the political landscape. We were having impact on the political, and we were shifting the political landscape in the 1980s. That's why in 1987 you had 3 African MPs who were installed in Parliament. Not that has proven to be done a great deal of good for us, but what I'm saying is it was because of the impact, the shifting of the political landscape that we had forced that resulted in that.
But we're going to come back to that, brother leader, because some might say that that's an example of the fact that we need to be, as we were debating last Sabbath, integrally involved in parliamentary politics and the voting process. But before we go there, we want to touch on some of the main implications or signs of implications that we can see since the Brexit vote, which is not even 2 weeks old. And what we went through the rise of quote unquote overt, they say racism. I'm going to say overt racism.
Absolutely.
In this society. What's your take on that, first and foremost? And secondly, are there any other immediate implications that you can see having played out or in the embryonic stages of playing out as regards to the black community that we need to be taking notice of, and as regards to a black agenda?
Tendai Mwari, it's not hard to imagine that overt racism, which is the open racist remarks and open racist attack that redneck racists would make on non-British people or whatever it is in society. I'm not, it's not difficult to imagine that may well be the case, not least because the proponents of Brexit played to racist stereotypes and did their utmost to evoke those racist sentiments in order to galvanize the masses of white working class people to vote Brexit. By using slogans like take back our country, control our borders. Nigel Farage and his party or his campaign group, Grassroots Out, and note the name, Grassroots Out. So they were going after the working class masses, and this giant poster that was launched, and with what appeared to be thousands of people marching into Britain and so on and so forth.
Invasion style.
Yeah, as if Britain was about to be invaded. They were playing to the basest racist instinct of the white working class masses. Last week's Sister Oracle talked about the vote actually demonstrating, or the outcome demonstrating that working class people have been alienated from the political elite. But I think it tells us more than that. It also tells us that the racist sentiments of the white working class were evoked, and that many people who voted Brexit voted on this one single issue, control of immigration. So that's not hard to imagine. But the extent to which we are hearing that has increased, I'm not sure if that's an increase in the actual fact,
right,
or it's an increase in the media actually covering it,
right,
because the media does not usually cover racist attacks and issues of racism. The media does a whiteout on that usually, But it is in it's in the interest of the media now, because so much of the media was pro, So it's in their interest, to use it for one reason or to report it for one reason or another. Whether it's that section of the media is pro Brexit or pro Remain, both of them would have a reason to want to report racist attacks for one reason or another. That said, there's also the issue of how we define racism, and how we address this issue of racism. The way the media deals with it, you would think that racism is just the overt form of racism, racist attack, racist abuse, etc., etc. But of course, racism is endemic in the fabric, the cultural fabric of this society, and permeates every institution of the society, as the Stephen Lawrence report, or the Macpherson report, arising out of the Stephen Lawrence inquiry, demonstrated that the society is endemically racist, that racism permeates the entire society and all of its institutions. So the real racism is what we face on a daily basis in the workplace, what our children face in the schools, what our young people face when they're simply walking on the streets and being harassed by the police. These are daily experiences of racism that we suffer. Health-wise, it is so bad that it affects our health to the point that we die, our life expectancy is much less than the host community.
Right.
So that is the real context of racism, and it's historical, it's global, and it's systemic.
Brother Leader,
And most of it is covert and not overt.
All right.
Tendai
Now,
Mwari.
one of the lasting implications of this, the Rev Leader, would be in terms of the voting and our voting habits as a people. When there was a time when there was a big scare around the BNP. The BNP won a seat somewhere like Barking or something like that. So,
Dagenham or something,
a few years ago. And so black people were being galvanized to vote Labour in order to keep the BNP out. More recently, that's been UKIP. Black people have been, mobilized around the issue of voting so as not to have a UKIP, so as not to allow UKIP to strengthen their place in the political system. But you just outlined that, these realities, both of which have taken place under Labour and the Conservative government. And so one of the lasting implications of this is that we're being encouraged even still now more to support Labour, particularly because of Jeremy Corbyn. And we'll come back to Jeremy Corbyn. But what is your take on the idea that black people should vote for either of the major political parties for the sake of reducing UKIP's influence on British politics?
Tendai Mwari. Well, I mean, I've made my position absolutely clear on Galaxy Radio repeatedly that to vote in a political system for one or another party, in a political system that is embedded in a society that is endemically racist and that has a history of oppression, of oppressing, exploiting, and downgrading African people, is to endorse that oppressive system. And whether it's the Labour Party that's in power or the Conservative Party that is in power, we see no real fundamental shift in terms of the impact of this society on African people.
But some would argue that UKIP would be worse than Labour or Conservative. If the more power UKIP get, the worse off Africans are going to fare in this country.
And you use a key word there, power.
Right.
UKIP is a bunch of white people who are organizing to acquire increasing proportions of power so that they can have a greater impact on the politics of this society.
Right.
These are people who are organizing. They've organized themselves into a party called the United Kingdom Independence Party.
Right.
And they have a clear objective. And by coming together and pooling their resources and having a clear objective and a program to achieve their objective, they are gathering momentum, political momentum, and have so much so that they forced the hands of the government of the day to call a referendum, which is what they came into existence to do. So they were able to fulfill their purpose. Their aim was to get the government, was to push the government of Britain to call a referendum. Even they themselves did not envisage that they would have been successful. Nigel Farage himself said it, that he never envisaged that success. The day of the referendum, he was already accepting defeat.
Yeah, early in the voting.
Early on in the voting, he was already accepting defeat and setting out his stalls for continued campaigning after the referendum.
How does that relate though to our people being mobilized to vote for Labour?
I'm saying that to emphasize that what we need to be doing is pooling our resources and our ideas around the establishment of a political movement, a political entity that is developed by us, that has clear objectives, aims and objectives. You've read out the aims and objectives of the Interim National African People's Parliament, for example, that speaks specifically and directly to our issues and to our needs, and to establish for ourselves a national independent, hear that word again, independent representative voice for African people in this country, which we don't have, which all other groups of people domiciled in the UK have. We don't have that.
Right.
We don't have that.
Right.
And that's the only way that we will be able to commandeer power.
Okay.
By organizing and uniting, in the words of the most eminent prophet and king. He says we must unite and we must organize.
So it sounds like what you're saying is that whether it's UKIP, Labour or Conservative, the result is still the same in terms of disempowerment for African people if we're not organised.
Some of the most retrograde immigration policies and laws, changes in the law, have been advanced by the Labour Party, have been presided over by the Labour Party, starting with the 1968 Immigrations Act, which really strengthened the 1962 Immigration Act, which was implemented by the Conservative Party, and then Labour strengthened that in 1968. Now, Labour is supposed to be our friend.
Yep. That could also be extended to the private prison industry and so on and so forth, which they were previously against before Tony Blair, and basically sanctioned once they got into power in 1997. But brother leader, some would argue now that we have, by the way, Kings of Queens, we're going to be opening the lines in about 5 minutes time. Yeah, so log the all important phone in number. You can text now on 07399 359 614. You will be able to call in about 5 minutes on 07923 334 515. Interact with brother leader, agree with him, tell him for Guan, tell him happy birthday, or disagree with him, cost him, tell him say him workless and he's not voting, so therefore he has no right to speak on British politics. Whatever your opinion, kings and queens, we accept it all and we shall debate it all right here on Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. This is Galaxy Radio, the only brainwashing station.
Now, Chakara, you're inviting the people and focus.
No, it's not invitation, leader, but we understand that we have a varied amount of views in the African community. And you know, Pan-Africanists have a bad reputation.
This is the time of sweet mouth, sugar coat.
I know, you know. Diplomacy, brother leader.
Political rhetoric.
Lesson number 9 of a message to the people of the course of African philosophy. But what it is, brother leader, we have a range of views, and you know, there is a unfounded viewpoint out there that people like us, you know, radicals, black people, you know, silence the voices of those in our community that don't think like us. So I want to invite those voices to speak and have their opinions heard, and we shall discuss and debate accordingly. But probably this is very important now, because right now, you see, the Labour Party is not the Labour Party, just the establishment Labour Party, because we have Jeremy Corbyn, who has inspired a group, who have called themselves Africans for Jeremy Corbyn's values, and another group of Africans who Jeremy Corbyn has inspired a movement called Momentum, and then a Momentum. Africans in Momentum have developed Momentum Black Connections, MBC. And again, this Jeremy Corbyn vibration has galvanized a lot of black energy, that would seemingly be trying to forward a black agenda in the name of Jeremy Corbyn's values. One, no less than Mark Wadsworth, who became, one of our key activists around issues like Stephen Lawrence and these things, brother leader. He told in Boris Johnson where to go, in the last election. So why do we not, as you know, yourself as a community activist, get behind the Jeremy Corbyn agenda?
No, because people like me are Garveyites. We're inspired by the black print of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the template that he has left for us for liberation activism. And Papa Garvey made it clear to us that any leadership that teaches you, quote unquote, any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you.
Well, brother, Mark Wadsworth says that Jeremy Corbyn has the best record, of any Labour MP on ever in the history of the Labour Party, which would probably be in the history of British politics by implication, on anti-racism, anti-imperialism. Papa Garvey was an anti-imperialist. On black self-organisation and black self-determination, Papa Garvey, these are Garveyite values. And Jeremy Corbyn has the best record on these issues, brother leader. Why are we not supporting Jeremy Corbyn?
Maybe we should have invited Brother Mark to come on to the show and qualify those sentiments. I'm not qualified to expand on that because I don't know anything about Jeremy Corbyn's track record for black activism. I don't know anything about that.
Yes. Well, he supported the Reparations Day march last year.
Well,
in fact, he was there. He showed up. He showed face. Apparently.
Well, I mean, poor Dan Abbott had to really work hard to get a little post in his cabinet. You know, and yet they weren't. I mean, she was one of his most loyal supporters. You know, so I don't know. Maybe Jeremy has some good political principles and so on that Papa Garvey says, hear all, but attend only to that which concerns you.
Okay.
The question is, who has the best, which African has the best program and the best agenda for us as African people? You see, Brother Mark's politics is the politics of integration.
Right.
Sounds to me like this is the politics of integration. This is the politics of how we make ourselves acceptable to the quote-unquote mainstream.
Yes.
Yeah? The politics of Garveyism and the principles of Garveyism are the principles of self-determination, are the principles of self-empowerment, are the principles of nationhood, are the principles of race first. Papa Garvey says, in a world of wolves, one should go armed. And the most powerful defensive weapon in reach of African people is the practice of race first in all parts of the world. Put your race first like all other races. And he also says power is the argument, the only argument that satisfies man. Except the individual, the nation, the race as power that is exclusive. That individual, nation, or race will be bound by the will of others who possess these great qualifications. The African must get power. Otherwise, we are relying on others, even if they mean us well.
Yes.
We're still relying on them and their mercy to protect and defend us. No, we must generate our own power from our own source and from our own resources. And create the mechanism for promoting, preserving, and protecting our own interests.
I mean, we live in Britain, to play Brian Nancy at the moment. We live in Britain, all right? That sounds all good, you know what I'm saying? Garveyite principles, some beautiful quotes and whatever else like that, you know what I mean? It's good that you memorize philosophies and opinions, but we live in Britain. This is the society that we live in, and how can you justify lack of engagement? What you're dealing with sounds like utopianism or idealism that really doesn't have a place in the real world. So the question really is, how do black people forward this black independent agenda in British society? That's what people want to know.
I don't know how we define the word engagement, because to organize, I mean, all other groups of people organize among themselves, organize exclusively among themselves, generate the power from within and among themselves, and engage in mainstream politics from a position of power. So if we are not organized among ourselves, generating our own internal power from our own resources, from our own sources and resources, then our engagement is weak. It's nebulous.
But
because we are not coming from a position of power.
So the problem is that when people say,
so we don't have the power to hold anybody to account.
But probably when it comes to vote, when it comes to being in engagement in the political system, it's easy. People can say, look, these are the political parties. You vote, right? When it comes to independent organizing and self-determination, people don't know. People say, well, where is it? How am I going to get involved in this thing? It sounds all nice what you're saying, but how do I do that living in Britain right now when I need a job?
That is what, you see, we've been engaging from the position of weakness for as long as we've been in this country. We've been playing party politics. We've been involved in Labour Party politics. We vote Labour. The overwhelming majority of African people vote Labour. Where has that got us as a people?
Some people
We're
say
still
it's got
at
them
the
jobs.
bottom.
It's got them jobs.
No, that's not what opened up job opportunities for. It was the uprisings of the 1980s that changed the political landscape and opened up opportunities in education, higher education, and in various professions.
So are you saying we should go back on the streets then?
I'm saying that we need to organize and establish a power base, a strong power base. And I'm saying if anyone try to tell our people that it's simply through straightforward engaging with the the political process and voting that we were able to make changes in this society. That is not the whole and entire truth. There was a movement of radicalism that shook up the political establishment, that shook up the social establishment from its core, that forced the hands of the establishment to make changes and to make accommodations. And those since the 1990s they have rolled back most of those since the 1990s. Tendai Mwari.
On all issues affecting the African community at home and abroad. Tune in Mondays, 8 to 10 p.m. and have your say as we talk it straight and make it plain. It's live, it's hot, it's scintillating, it's real. It's Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on Galaxy Radio, the only de-brainwashing station.
And now this 24-hour radio. And now this 24-hour radio.
Galaxy Radio 102.5, our Philly station.
Yo, this is Swiss So Solid. Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Galaxy 102.5. Blaze the fire. Fire, 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 fire.
What time is it? When we come together, what time is it? When we respect each other, what time is it? When we get our self-confidence, what time is it? When we form our own political party, what time is it?
4th of July 2016, paid the Pan-African Investment Day. Paid the Pan-African Investment Day, putting black group economics into action. A unique opportunity bringing independent black institutions together with you, community investors from all walks of black life. Featuring the Marcus Garvey Nursery, Mother Earth Mineral and Mining Services, and the African Food Hall. 3 black institutions, 3 development programs, 3 opportunities for you to invest.
Pay takes place on Sunday the 24th of July 2016 from 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Caribou Education Centre, 7 Gresham Road, Brixton, SW9 7PH.
For more information, including bookings, stores and advertising, visit alkebulan.org/paid.
That's ALKEBULAN.org/paid. This is an event not to be missed. Paid, the Pan-African Investment Day, putting black group economics into action.
You're in tune to Galaxy Radio, the only de-brainwashing station.
Chandamari, yes, brothers and sisters, this is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan on 102.5 FM, www.galaxyaffiliate.com. The discussion this evening, after Brexit, what is the black agenda? We are talking to the spiritual leader of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, brother leader Mbandaka, and some of the questions that we have posed. Will we see a level of racism, violence and fear not seen since Enoch's Powell with rivers of blood speech? Are we now comfortable being British? Is organising around Jeremy Corbyn's values the answer? You can also text us, brothers and sisters, on 07399 359 614. You can call that number as well. Call both these numbers, 07923 334 515, or call and text this number 07399 359 614. Tendai Mwari.
We have a caller on the line, kings and queens. We have a caller on the line. We have Brother Ade is on the line. Brother Ade?
Yes, how are you doing there? How are you doing there, everybody?
We're good, Brother Ade.
Tendai Mwari, good to hear your voice.
Yeah, but Brother Mbandaka, I agree with Carly with everything you say. But you summed everything up, in the right perspective here. Because at the end of the day, it's about self-interest. This is what the British people have decided to quit the EU. For me personally, it wasn't nothing new. This is precisely what that, even though I didn't vote, but I knew this was exactly what was going to happen. Because if you look at most of the working class out of the northeast of England, the whole country voted for them to quit the EU. And then you saw as you mentioned, Barking and Dagging. And apart from that, and the borough of Illingdon and Bexley East, they actually voted for, again, to leave the EU. All the in the London borough, like ones who have now voted to remain. So we suggest, to leave people, always at the edge, So I think, for me personally, maybe you might put Britain in check, to readdress its colonial past, having to depart the EU. And I also believe they've laid the foundation for other countries to exit the EU, because I could see the EU becoming defunct in the next 5 years. This is my personal opinion. I think because, as you mentioned, it hasn't, contributed to the exploitation big time of the African continent.
Thank you very much.
Give thanks for your contribution.
Give thanks, Brother Ade, for that contribution. The lines are open, Kings and Queens. 07923 334 515. You can also call in on 07399 359 614.
Yes, we have Brother Kwame on the line. Brother Kwame, how would you like to join the discussion this evening?
Tandamari family.
Tandamari.
But leader, I do sympathize with you in a way. But what you have to understand, and I think you do, deep inside your psyche, is that most of our people do not define themselves as African. You had last week 2 people in the studio with you. One of them said that I was working class and British. The other, the counsellor, quite obviously, even claiming he's a student of Marcus Garvey, is quite happy being a bloodsucker of the system. So, when we talk about a black agenda, there is no black agenda, because the vast majority of our people, and that was specified in very to remain, see themselves as British, not as black, not as African.
Brother Kwame, have you heard of Africans for JC's values?
Yes, I think that is the most diabolical, despicable, disgusting scenario ever, because, like Malcolm X said, if you don't stand up for something, you fall for anything.
Brother Kwame, and thank you for sharing your viewpoint on Africans for JC values. But where I was going with it is that you said that most of us don't see ourselves as Africans, but it seems that Jeremy Corbyn's values have inspired a movement of Africans for Jeremy Corbyn's values. So where
organising as Africans?
Yeah, organised as Africans. So where does that come from if we don't see ourselves as Africans?
No, but that comes from from an opportunist perspective, because, like I said before, just because Jeremy Corbyn in his youth went to Jamaica, slept with some few black women, right, and smoked pot, smoked weed, and listened to reggae music, right, doesn't make him doesn't make him to have that kindred spirit with us. We as a people are too naive and gullible to believe that just because somebody plays black music or somebody has a black girlfriend or whatever, they have a kindred spirit of us and our values and our culture. That is complete and utter rubbish. And I think those people who have been behind this quite disgraceful group are naive to that certain point. And just to finish on this point about voting in the system, that people like Sister Oracle and the Councillor Martin believe, right, let's look at America as an example. Black people have voted Democrat and Republican in America. They voted hugely for Obama. We've had many black mayors like David Dickens and all the rest of them. We've had many black senators, right? But to this day, as I'm talking to you now in 2016, the wealth gap between African Americans and white Americans is the widest in the Obama 8-year period under a so-called black president and under black mayors and under black attorney general, etc. More wider than it was when Africans came out of slavery in 1865. So the American experience should show us that engaging in a white supremacist system that does not value our existence, that does not value our being, is counterproductive. And we have two choices, like I said on another program. We either leave, which I'm definitely going to leave, or you stay, or you organize and yourself and stay. Because without organization, you're going to die in this society. Because interbreeding, Jeremy Corbyn, right, screwing white men and white women is not the answer. That is not the answer. We have to start to do for ourselves. Look at the Chinese community in the UK. The Chinese community in the UK is such a small community.
Yeah.
But yet, because they can organize themselves, there's a Chinatown in every major city of the country, of this country.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, my brother. That's what we're talking about.
Interact together for the common purpose of fomenting a Chinese community. No one talks about us being separatist, and I played back the program last week. People like Sister Oracle, and I'm sure this is about 80% of the black community in the UK, believe that when you talk like that, like Brother Leader was, you're talking separatism. Doing for self is not about separatism. The Asian man do for self, that's not separatism. The China man do for self, that's not separatism. It is about building your own community. If you love yourself first, if you're proud of who you are, if you want to stick to your culture, your roots, your identity, any normal human being will automatically think that doing for yourself is the norm. But because the way we bought into assimilation, integration, and so-called multiculturalism, and wanting to breed with white people, we believe that we think in our twisted minds that anything to do with coming together or fomenting unity or even what you're talking about paid, that is some crazy crackpot black nationalists who don't understand what time it is and who are pretty sensitive.
Okay. All right, Brother Kwame.
Kwame. Give thanks for that, Brother Kwame.
Brother Kwame. Kings and Queens, you can do the same. 07923 334 515. Is Brother Kwame being harsh on Jeremy Corbyn and the Africans for JC values? Normally when you see Africans for JC values, and that usually mean Jesus Christ. Now we have Jeremy Corbyn, Kings and Queens, as a new savior.
Well, you stole my thunder. I was gonna throw in our producer's comment in our fellowship yesterday, where he said we just have a fixation for white men with the initials JC, with the initials JC.
Yes.
So I thought that was just that summed us up.
Indeed, Kings and Queens. 079 23 334 515. You can text also on 07399 359 614. We have a caller on the line.
Yo, this is Swiss So Solid. Africa speaks with Alkebu-Lan, Galaxy 2.5. Blaze the fire.
Tendamora, we have Mama Margaret. How would you like to join the discussion this evening? What?
Oh, hello, my darling. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good evening, Mama Margaret.
Good evening, as the case may be.
Coming out now, and I want you to listen, and I don't want it to take me off. I know you had the last speaker a long time. I've been involved in politics from 1968. I was one of those people who came from Trinidad as a nurse and studying. There was a man, I don't know if you remember him, by the name of Bernie Grant.
Yes, we knew him well.
Bernie Grant was a Labour Party member, and he was a union man too. And every month, at the end of the month, black people, conscious black people, would meet at friend's house, and we would have meetings. Out of that group of nearly 90 people, we fought racism. We didn't come on air, we didn't have a radio station to fight the racism that it was. Things came back to normal. Everybody was, BMP was fighting this and fighting that, but as much as we can. Some of us became councillor. I was one of the councillors, but I was a conscious one. The majority of the so-called black conscious people who came out to fight racism and to fight for our people got big jobs. They got big pay.
That's right. That's true.
They took the money. They went to the leafy parts of England and lived. They've got farms. They've got this. They've got that. The few of us who decided that we weren't going that way were pushed on through the press. The man Jeremy Corbyn that you're speaking about right now, I'm not saying that he's a good man. He was one of the people of the Labour Party that got the agenda in Bournemouth that I spoke on black people in the Labour Party. That's the only party was going to accept us to fight for racism. And we fought like hell. They There are people out there, I know they're listening to you all, who took all the money that they can get, all the grants they can get. They buy big car, they buy big house, they do this, they run on white man, they do whatever they do.
We hear you, Mama Margaret.
That we are right now. And this is the truth. I said to you all, I'm not joining any group because I've got to look and see what you're doing. The poor ones like me and so forth, we're wrong and we're listening and we're looking. And my God, when we're ready to come out, we will come out and show you all what it is to be black, what it is to do what Garvey wanted us to do, what it is to show us what Bernie Grant teaches us to do, not for jobs and for money. My dear, I'm going because I'm getting very upset because every time I hear people like Kwame and all of you talking about this happening and that happening in America and that happening, our children had guns pointing their face. We had shit thrown us. We couldn't eat food. They come here, they had bread on the ground. We brought it to what it was. And you all say this is not our country for our children. All right, we want to go back to Africa, but we have to fight back to get England. And if you all continue as you are, we are going to destroy. Goodbye and good night.
Good night, Mama. Can I just say that Brother Kwame did make it clear. He did state that we have two choices. We either can go back home or we stay here and organize.
Well, there's nothing for us to go back home because home is not organized. And if we don't get together here, get together and stop bitch biting, fighting each other and doing this group and doing that group, we wouldn't get anywhere. Our young children have to become a prime minister of this blasted country. To get America, to get Africa, to everything to support us. Anyhow, I'm sweating. Let me get off. Bye.
All right, good night.
Okay. Mama Margaret. All right, Mama Margaret said we need a black prime minister of Britain, kings and queens. I know many of you will agree with that. Share your viewpoint. Many of you will disagree with it. Share your viewpoint. 07923 334 515. We have a text.
Yes, it says there is no future for black people in a white nationalist state of emergency, and Jeremy Corbyn is not the answer, as he will soon be dethroned as Labour leader. The next question, that was 988. 574 says okay. 574. You're going to have to wait a minute. Tendai Mwari.
Right, brothers and sisters, you can do just like the 988 and text in on 07399359614. Kings and Queens, we are asking the question: after Brexit, what is the black agenda? Kings and Queens, we have a caller on the line.
We have Brother Trevor. Brother Trevor, how do you want to join the discussion this evening?
And I just want to agree with the lady that called up just now, Mama Margaret. Yeah, it's like back in the day, you had like a lot of community centers, youth centers, and they were given grants and they were given money to help the youth be educated and go on trips and stuff like that, yeah, and by facilities. A lot of the money was spent. There was a lot of mismanagement. And where are those community leaders now? Going back 20, 25 years, where are they? There's one community centre I remember that done well. That was Shepherd's, yeah, in Brixton. That was on Roton Road. That's I used to attend that community centre, and they helped the youth. But there's many community centres that, when the times were harsh, they should have been saving and helping the youth and building some kind of community. They wasn't doing that.
Brother. What's Trevor?
Yes.
Brother Trevor. Some people argue that the funding was pulled on a lot of these institutions. What is your viewpoint on that?
The funding was pulled, yes, but at a certain time there was funding, and people thought that there will always be funding. So they thought to themselves, okay, let me take a little piece of this, let me take some of that. But the money was there. Listen, man, there was sound systems, there was a big industry that we had, and we had control of, but we to tell the truth, we squandered many things.
Are you saying that the sound systems of the 80s were funded by the government?
Sorry?
Are you saying that the sound systems of the 80s are funded by the government?
I switched the subject.
Right.
That's a different subject. When it comes to sound systems, there was like record shops. There was a big.
All right, but to bring it back to the subject, King, cause the sound system thing might not be as off the subject as you might think.
Part of the subject, because that was the way of how we could have built an industry.
Okay.
You understand? That was the way how we accumulated money, but we didn't use it in the right way.
So would you say that sound system was an example of self-reliance?
It was, definitely.
All right. Thank you, Brother Trevor.
Yeah. What one of the things you have to remember, though, Brother Trevor, is that a number of these people that you call community leaders who were given big jobs weren't actually community leaders. You know, they were handpicked. They were handpicked people in our community who the establishment found that they were pliable, they were easy to use and manipulate to do their bidding. So they weren't necessarily our community leaders. The more radical elements in our community were overlooked and were trying to organize from the perspective of self-determination, self-reliance and self-determination.
Okay, give thanks.
Tendai Mwari.
102.5 FM, www.galaxyaffiliate.com.
What time is it? When we come together, what time is it?
Galaxy, you're my shining star. Please don't go away. Please don't go away. Please don't go away.
Yes, indeed, kings and queens. This is Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. We have a text.
Yes, it says the EU came about through the League of Nations, primarily to stop the wars among EU states, or from an African Holocaust perspective to continue with the £1 billion plunder campaign of EU states joining together to splice up Africa. Is that true? Read another text. Also, how come so-called African Pan mobilize to support JC, however, do not come out for our liberation? Has Jeremy Corbyn's diet need to have a reparations agenda? So how is this relevant to our development and liberation? Confused as we are being led by agents of the state. I think that's going to say how come Pan-Africanists are mobilizing around Jeremy Corbyn. Greetings, Alkebu-Lan family. Happy Earth Strong to Brother Mbandaka. I believe Brother Mbandaka and Brother Kwame, who called in earlier, have spoken the truth and hold the right views from Makonnen Sankofa. Tendamori.
Give thanks to Brother Makonnen Sankofa. The texter who texted about Pan-Africanists supporting Jeremy Corbyn. Clarify that, please. We said that there's Africans supporting Jeremy Corbyn. If you can clarify if you know of any Pan-Africanists who are supporting Jeremy Corbyn, we'd be most grateful. That'd be an interesting addition to our conversation. Brother, there was a text there with a question in it about the formation of the EU and stopping wars in Europe. Yeah, has that been a part of the discussions that you've heard in the mainstream news in terms of African people? Have we been, stating this as an important part of our EU agenda? And if you could go in and explain in terms of the EU and the implications of them organizing to stop European wars and the impact that has had on Africa and the Caribbean.
Tendai Mwari. I mean, that is part of the claim that is made in terms of why the EU came into existence. It came into existence after World War II, not World War I. The texter said World War I. It was after World War II.
No, I think the League of Nations was after World War I. So he's saying that
the League of Nations was after World War I.
Yes,
but then he said primarily to stop the wars among EU states, or from the EU came about through the League of Nations.
So he's basically saying it's a follow-on in the whole process.
Oh, okay, it's not entirely incorrect, but in case it gave the impression that it came directly out of the after World War I. Out of the League of Nations. That is not the case. The organization that was formed after World War I, that is more relevant to the founding of the EU, that is directly relevant to the founding of the EU, is an organization called the Council on Foreign Relations that was established in 1921. This is in effect a secret society. That is run by the power elites of the globe, leading power elites like the Rockefeller family, the Rothschilds, and so on. And the European Union is a product of these forces. It's a New World Order project, and it's a New World Order project that is designed to bring in this one world government agenda. And Europe is one of the regions of establishing this one world government. Yeah, and we have to understand the unseen shadows in motion, the unseen forces that operate on a global level, that run secret society, that run the banking system, that run world trade, that run the multinational corporations, that are really driving this agenda. These are the forces that are behind driving this agenda. This is why the EU is such a deadly and dangerous prospect for African people. When you consider, let me just say this, when you consider that some of the major giant corporations and mega banking institutions were bankrolling the Remain campaign, right? Like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and Citibank, big mega corporations like BP, Morgan Stanley. These big corporations were bankrolling the Remain campaign. Ask yourself the question, why were they bankrolling the Remain campaign? Because they have a direct interest. Because the EU is their project. And the CIA, the US Central Intelligence Agency, was also directly involved in the establishment of the European Union. This is why this TTIP, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, that America is now engaging in with the European Union, is so important to them. It's so important to America, because what they're doing is expanding this trade zone, this transatlantic trade zone, and it is so important to the American government. Why do you think the Obama traveled to Britain a couple of weeks before the referendum actually took place to urge the British public to vote Remain? Why was it so important to the American establishment that the president broke protocol and interfered in the internal politics of a sovereign nation?
Well, Brother Leader, some might say that everything that you just explained is an example of why democracy. This is an example of why democracy works, Brother Leader, because the people of Britain voted out of that particular agenda that was being supported by Goldman Sachs and so on and so forth. Log that thought, Brother Leader, because we do have a caller on the line. We're going to come back to that.
Tomorrow we have another Brother Kwame for this evening. Greetings, my brother. How would you like to join the discussion? What is the black agenda?
Mwari, this is Brother Kwame from Stoke Newington.
Brother Kwame.
I was thinking of your children the other day. They've been dying to taste my jollof rice.
I know. She's the girl who been doing research, and then today you said, Daddy, I have found Brother Mbandaka. I know where you can get them. She's the one who actually organized everything for me to know where you are. Yes.
It's great to hear your voice, Brother Kwame. Long time.
I know. I know, my brethren.
It's wonderful. This is like a family reunion.
Okay, Brother Kwame, what's your contribution to Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan today? Good to hear your voice.
Is that Brother Shakarai?
It is, sir.
Yes.
Greetings. Good to hear your voice, sir.
I hope spiritually you tune enough.
Yes, sir. Most definitely.
Yes, I think, my brethren, I phoned just also to let you know that I know where you are now, and it's just nice to hear your voices.
All right.
I've been listening for about 20 minutes now. I've been trying to get through. My brethren, last 2 weeks we were discussing something on the FM station, and I just also said we also mustn't forget to use this to advise our African leaders what is happening in Europe. And we're talking about unity and out unity here, but we're also looking for unity in Africa. So there's two different things here we need to consider. So the African thinkers. So this is very important because it's affecting us. So we know other people what they're saying. So my advice is, brethren, we have some more people here who want to stay here, and others who eventually go home. Others are just going. So we have 2 Africans here. Others will probably see this society as where they come from, and they want to create a future here. There's nothing wrong with that. But also some who also want to get back home. Also, we have different agenda. So a friend of mine said the other day on the Voice of African Radio, Nigerian brother, he said we have 2 different Africans. One sees himself as black and one is an African. So, brethren, Jeremy Corbyn is here. We live in a society. So far, so good. I've been always voting for Labour Party. Whatever it is better than the other parties. Not unless we can organize ourselves, or maybe we can use this, what is happening now, to also engage in the British politics. Those who are willing to stay here, also to pave their way to secure a position for our future children who also want to stay here. So we have 2 different chances here, whether they will get into politics themselves and help Jeremy Corbyn, help Labour Party to build up, and also they themselves to get involved in the politics, to become MPs, to become local chancellors, which is very important, and also keep things going. And on the side, Africans who want to get back, also make sure that we pass information to our leaders in Africa about unity, brethren.
Okay.
Brother Kwame, you do know, I'm sure you do know about the good cop, bad cop strategy, right? Brother Kwame? Okay, I wanted to suggest to my brother that the Labour Party, Conservative Party political dichotomy is very much akin to the good cop, bad cop strategy. You know, where when you're being interrogated in the police cell, you have the aggressive one, the bad cop, the aggressive one, who shake you up and instill fear in you, yeah? And the nice one, the good cop, you know, who use a softer approach. And that's the person that's going to twist you and squeeze the information out of you that they want to use to charge and convict you. So we have to be very careful. This political system, we have to look at what the culture and the nature of the society is in which we live. And historically, when you hear these people on the streets during the campaign saying, we're going to put the great back into Britain, what do you think they mean? What do you think they mean about putting the great back into Britain? Great Britain, when they talk about Great Britain and putting the great back into Britain, they are alluding to empire, the British Empire. How was the British Empire built? The British Empire was built on the enslavement, the invasion of Africa, the conquest of Africans, the enslavement of Africans, the colonization of Africans. That's what the British Empire was built upon. And it was the Industrial Revolution that brought the wealth to the British Empire, which was fueled by our blood, our sweat, and our tears during slavery. So when they talk about putting the great back into Britain, what does that mean for us as African people?
Yes, indeed.
The numbers to call are 07923 334 515 or 07399 359 614. You can also text on the 614 number as well. We do have Brother Thomas on the line. Tendai Brother Thomas, how would you like to join the discussion this evening?
Yeah, we were talking about African unity and African move forward, and I just had a little point where everyone's asleep on this, where everyone's quick to talk about how good Gaddafi was and what he done for Africa, but everyone talks about it now. While it was going on and while they had that struggle, everyone was a bit quiet, and right now there's African leaders trying to do the same thing. There's one African country in particular who's rejecting world aid right now, who's screaming self-reliance, and has always had that agenda, and the whole conscious community tends to just ignore it. And I wanted to know if you guys were aware of what's been going on with Eritrea and the UN sanctions, how it's been affecting them, what's been going on in the last couple of weeks in Geneva.
Brother Thomas, give us an idea of where you're coming from.
Alright, cool. What's been going on? They did like there's a kind. Basically, Eritrea refused world aid. So it actually hasn't got any debt. It doesn't let outside corporations into the country. They run a socialist style state. It's like Africa's Cuba, and it's kind of the only country in Africa that took its independence through the barrel of a gun with no compromise. I think Zimbabwe ended up compromising at the end, but and the fact that it's just ignored amongst all the conscious community. I was trying to ask. I wanted to like a reason or explanation why no one mentions it, why people support it, and yeah.
Brother Leader, our brother Thomas is saying that Eritrea represents a positive example. What he explained is that it refused some world aid and it doesn't allow foreign companies to own anything on the land. But Pan-Africanists seem very, very quiet on Eritrea as an example of self-reliance on the African continent. What is your explanation for this?
Tonight, Mwari, I actually agree with my brother. In fact, that is a perspective that I've advanced on our show.
Yeah.
A couple of months ago, we had a discussion, and I raised that particular point that we don't focus enough on Eritrea, and we should focus on Eritrea because there is some good stuff, some good work that is being done in Eritrea, and Eritrea is resisting European imperialist encroachment, and yes, is refusing to be dominated by the policies of the World Trade Organization. It's looking inward, and it's pursuing a political and economic agenda that is not without its challenges, but but there's a determination to maintain its own sovereignty. Right. And there's a determination to be self-reliant and self-determining. So yes,
Brother Thomas?
Yeah.
Have you heard Brother Leader there?
Yeah, I heard what he's got to say. I do like that, but I've phoned him before.
Afwerki, the President Afwerki is demonstrating, some very strong qualities that I think we need to be aware of, and we need to commend.
If you don't want to look up the Liberation War, it was like a 30-year guerrilla warfare, and people tend to think it was a war against Ethiopia, but it actually wasn't. If you look at who was running Ethiopia, the reasons why it was awarded to Ethiopia, an American official in the 50s stated when the British were handing it over to Ethiopia, they said, in the best interest of justice and the Eritrean people's opinions, it would be fair to give them a referendum. But in the interest of the US, it needs to be under the control of our ally, Ethiopia. You understand?
Right.
It wasn't another African country they were fighting against. If you look at how much aid was given to Haile Selassie during that period, it was that 80% of all of Sub-Saharan Africans aid. It was the West that Eritrea was fighting against. And when Haile Selassie left, and it was a new government, Mengistu, it was the Soviets and the Cubans that were funding him. And if you actually go into detail what happened and what the Eritrean people actually achieved, it's kind of disgraceful that the African community, the conscious community, doesn't look to it, because it's actually the only revolution from neocolonialism that's still ongoing today.
Okay. My brother Thomas,
I'll leave you to it. Yeah.
I really appreciate your contribution this evening. And you've raised a very important point, and maybe it's a discussion for another day.
Yeah, we need to do a
we
show
can develop in it a bit more.
Yeah, but we rest assured we have
experts onto the show for you guys to ask questions and a proper show. It can be a full show. If you want to hold on to my number,
do bear in mind, as I said, we have touched on that in Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. But you're quite right, it needs a more detailed, exploration, and our people need to know more about Eritrea and what is happening in Eritrea and the history of Eritrea.
There's loads of experts that would love to come onto the show and you can have like however many hours you want to take it, and you can explain everything, the whole history, because it's kind of hidden. There's been no voice for the Eritrean people. It's a small nation, and yeah.
Thank you, Robert Thomas. We've heard you loud and clear, and we'll make that happen. Okay.
Have a good night.
You too, sir. You too. Thank you very much. That was a very, very interesting call there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So give thanks for that contribution. That's why we like Galaxy Radio. You know, our callers always provide.
Only brainwashing.
Yes, indeed.
And once again, you know, to apply that to the discussion that we're having today, you know, European nations alongside America is trying to destroy Eritrea. Mm-hmm. This is why I'm saying that, you know, we as African people have to be very careful and very critical in our analysis of the EU project and what it represents for African people. Tendai
Mori. Texa 988 says there is talk that a situation could arise in the light of Brexit, that EU citizens could be repatriated. Theresa May said to Andrew Marr, now if this became policy, those black people who are addicted to white people and want to stay here will have to leave. So tired of woman.
You said that?
Theresa May said.
Okay. That sounds like political suicide. But okay.
Theresa May that people.
But she's supposed to be running for the leadership of the party.
No, but we have, you know, again, all time people say take sleep mark debt. Yeah. When you hear these people talking like this.
Yeah.
No,
right?
But we have to verify if Theresa May said that, though. You know, that sounds very
but whether she said but whether she said it or not, you know, is secondary. Certainly, that has been reported in the media all day today that she said those words, and we haven't heard.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, we haven't heard her come out and refute any of that. But the point is that when you hear these people talking like that, okay. That is just an indication of the kind of discussions they're having behind the scenes, right? I can tell our listeners this. Myself and Brother Kweku, who is answering the phones, one of our long-standing members of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, was speaking to an elder a person who is a peer of the realm, of the British realm. Mm-hmm. And I can't state the person's name. Mm. And this person told us in no uncertain terms, right? And you would not have expected this from this particular person. This person told us that what they have planned for our people in this country is deadly, seriously dangerous. And she said she needs to let us know that. Our people need to organize. We don't know what these people have planned for us. And when you hear them talking like this, right, you see how easy it is to whip up racist sentiments.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you hear all these reports about racist. Where were all those racist sentiments? It was always there, right? So it's always there for them to whip it up at their convenience. All right? So we have to be very, very careful. These are very, very serious times.
Well, Kings and Queens,
we need to organize.
Even the lords and the ladies are saying we need to organize, Kings and Queens.
Yes, we have Brother Paul on the line. Tendai, Brother Paul. Sorry, Brother Paul, but it's all 1 minute wonders now. Go ahead.
Yeah, nothing changes. Every week it's the same, so I expect no difference. One day we're going to improve that situation, and we're going to come with something more improved and better. But until we get to that point, this is what I'd like to say. I got a phone call from someone I very much respect, and I got a little bit of a telling off. But I do respect that person, and I value his thoughts and opinions. And if he's listening, he knows who he is. But look, my point is this. You know, I'd love to talk about Jeremy Corbyn and the in or out, or whether we're going to shake it all about. But the reality of it is this. I want to talk about what affects me most and what I think is of most concern. And that is that we have many organizations and many people purporting to do many things. But what I can see clearly, I think, and I don't think I'm wrong, is that these organizations are not unified. They have no common union. They are just organizations, to me, I mean, forgive me, please, talking, whispering behind one another's back, fighting one another, and telling the people to unite when then themselves cannot unite. Now, I spoke this on Marley's show with the Fathers Group, and I think people got the wrong impression. Some people felt that I was attacking the group. But let me make it clear for the sake of ambiguity. Yeah, what I'm saying is this. I'm not talking about any one individual or any group in per se. I'm saying that as a whole, for us to move forward in this critical time, in this serious time, we have to have serious intentions, and I don't see those serious intentions.
Brother Paul? Brother Paul?
That's my name.
Yes, sir. Have you been listening to the entire show?
Yes, I have.
So did you hear the advert for the Pan-African Investment Day?
Brother, yes, I did.
Okay, so I'm inviting you along because we have 3 different institutions. They're 3 separate institutions, and none of which are members of the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, and we brought them together for the purpose of putting black group economics into action. So I urge you to come along because that is at least one example of organizations, groups, and institutions working together to do something very serious. One of many examples, but I'm just giving you one.
Great, and I will do my best to make that opportunity. Now you put me there.
Yes, sir.
What I say, like for instance, right here and now on Galaxy Radio, what I've seen, let me work with that because that is what I've seen, and to me that's something more closer to home, right? Every organization which comes and speaks on Galaxy Radio presents a media platform. It allows people to talk and views, but I think that every organization or purported individual represents an organization who comes onto Galaxy should show a united front, should show to the people, and that can be done by way, say, even if once a year they all come out together. Because it makes no sense to me that people come on Galaxy talking about union when then themselves are not united.
All right, thank you very much, Brother Paul, for that contribution right there, and we do hope that we will see Brother Paul on the first of Mosiah Reparations March, because many organizations come out, and in spite of all the differences that Brother Paul has spoken about, many of the organizations, groups, and individuals do come out to support that day.
Working together to make the day happen.
Indeed, you know what I'm saying.
I mean, I was at ALD in Birmingham and African Liberation Day. And there were a number of organizations represented in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
I know the Pan-African Society Community Forum, in conjunction with the All African People's Revolutionary Party, also convened at African Liberation Day in London. The Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement was certainly present and supported that. And there were other organizations. In fact, Sister Afyong was the keynote speaker from Moyo Wataifa. So that's 4 organizations mentioned there, and there were other organizations who were present working together. We recently had the Nation of Islam speaking at our NOMO
on the subject of Lift the Ban on Minister Farrakhan.
On Minister Farrakhan, a program which we, the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, is supporting, and that doesn't mean we agree on everything. Any of these organizations agree on everything, and yes, we have our issues, we have our falling outs, but we do work together at times. I think we need to do more, which is what I said at the beginning of the show.
Saturday schools, we work together.
We work together. We have sports days,
as well as other annual events that we come together.
Brother Paul mentioned specifically Galaxy Radio, and just to say, as far as Africa Speaks of Afrikan and all of the shows on Galaxy Radio are concerned, like Brother Paul has said, an example of the unity is the fact that they will have a voice on Galaxy Radio. It's not necessarily that we always agree, and in fact there is even more unity in the fact that we can support each other even when we disagree. And many of the organizations that Brother Leader mentioned in terms of AOD, to be open and clear, because I know Brother Paul and many Galaxy listeners know these things. Some of us have, even as Alkebu-Lan, some of us have differences with the Alkebu-Lan. They have differences with the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, and vice versa. But as the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, as and where we can support all of those organizations, we have done so, even in the midst of our disagreements, and we do that whether or not we receive back that support. So that is an example of unity right there as well, and I hope Brother Paul and all our listeners can understand that.
The Pan-African, I'll just very quickly just mention one more, the Pan-African Society Community Forum. Every year they also have the Marcus Garvey Memorial Lecture. We were there, and
organizations were there,
a number of other organizations were there. So there is some unity going on between organizations.
There's room for improvement.
We need to do more.
It's a go on.
We're waiting for people to join,
and
that improvement will only come on the basis of what is already happening.
And I should say, I'm sorry, Brother Paul has gone, but Brother Paul did say he was going to come to the General People's Assembly last Saturday. I didn't see him there, so I guess it's good reason why you weren't able to make it, Brother Paul. But
Brother Paul, you missed out, man. There was a room full of people there looking to unify and organize.
Let it be known that the Interim National African People's Parliament is designed to bring Africans together across organizational, ideological, religious lines, etc., etc.
Okay, Texas says, why do we want to stay in a burning house? Look at all the indices from health to education and from employment to criminal injustice. An economic climate that is going down means that you have no future in a burning house. Better to leave the burning house than to be burnt to death. And that's from Nana Akomia.
Even that takes organization. Even that takes organization. And we have to be realistic. There are 2 million Africans living in this country, brothers and sisters. Okay? All of us are not going to up and leave this place at once. So we need to organize ourselves so that at least we can protect ourselves from the fire that is burning.
685 Texas says, greetings Galaxy, Alkebu-Lan. Up until 1978, almost every borough had a community centre and youth club. Maggie Thatcher government closed them down in the 1980s. 1980s, and that destroyed the communities to this day.
Well, if we were organized, if we had pooled our resources, some of those buildings, we could have bought some of those buildings or pool our resources and bought other available spaces where we could organize our own community activities. They could not have pulled the rug from under our feet, right?
We've got 3 minutes left inside the show. Brother SG Vibes, who has just arrived, will be taking over at the top of the hour, Kings and Queens. Brother Leader, we need to take some closing words.
All right. Let's take this 1 minute wonder. The last caller, Brother Matrix. Go ahead. You got 1 minute, and we're gonna really have to be a tight one. Tenamore.
All right, Tenamore,
Brother Matrix.
Yes, bro. Yes.
We'll tell your voice, King.
Yeah, just last one. I just wanted to get, because I've missed it. What was your idea? What's your perception about Corbyn?
We just did a long thing on that, brother Matrix, and because it's a 1 minute wonder, we can't even go into that now because we're really coming to the close. But if you go on alkebu-lan.org, where you can
listen back to the show.
I quoted Papa Garvey, my brother. Any leadership that teaches you to depend upon another race is a leadership that will enslave you.
All right.
Corbyn is not an African leader with an African perspective. We need African leadership. We need African organization from an African perspective. Tendai Mwari.
Thanks a lot, Brother Matrix. Nick, try and phone a bit earlier.
Thank you.
Tendai Mwari, bless.
Yes, Brother Leader. Just to, in closing now. First of all, brothers and sisters, this is a 2-hour radio show, and if you want the solutions to all the things that we're talking about, you have to get involved in the work, not listen to the radio. We apologize for not being able to expand on all of the solutions today. But as I said, the solutions take place not in the talk of the radio, but in the work and the action in the community. So we've mentioned iNAPP. You can find iNAPP at inapp.org.uk and get involved in that program. There's also the Alkebu-Lan Revivalist movement, alkebu-lan.org. Brother Leader, one of the questions that we missed out in closing, and then your closing words, is that the idea that this Brexit vote is a vote, is an anti-establishment vote. It's the people taking back the power of democracy into their hands and fighting against the EU agenda that you outlined earlier.
I didn't say it's the people taking back.
You didn't say that.
Right,
I'm saying that the argument is being made.
Right.
This is a people's demonstration, anti-establishment, and so therefore they will be voting against what the agenda that you outlined in terms of the EU. So why are we not supporting then the Brexit campaign in respect of that?
Yeah, Tena, I wish we had a little bit more time. Yes, it's the establishment, and it's the establishment that's pro the New World Order. And sorry we don't have time to break it down a little bit further, but the New World Order is controlled and driven by secret societies and rich power elites in the world, like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the Warburns and
against them.
And so
That's
on and so forth. Yes, but it was the Brexit campaign was led by a rebel element within the establishment, within the same establishment, who are equally alienated from the masses and who are actually exploiting the masses in order to forward their own agenda. Okay. And their own agenda is to preserve what they call British sovereignty. Yeah. British sovereignty, and they want to put the great back into Britain. Mm-hmm. The great back into Britain refers to empire. Rule Britannia, Britannia rule the waves. Mm-hmm. Britain never shall be slaves. But who were the people that were enslaved to enrich Britain? Us. Mm-hmm. Putting the great back into Britain means the oppression of African people. We've got to understand that we're voting for the devil or Satan. Right. Yeah, none of these present an agenda for the benefit of the white working class, let alone for us as African people. In so the extent to which they allude to the white working class and the interests of the white working class is the extent to which they need to exploit the white working class in classes in order to give a semblance, give a veneer of democracy. Yeah? This is what we have to understand, and we must not fall for it. We must not continue to fall for it as African people. What we need to do is what the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, urge us to do. Unite, organize now or perish. Rise, you mighty African people, for you can accomplish whatever you will. And I will add to that, sign up to iNAPP, brothers and sisters.
Kings and Queens, and I just got sent a video of the dub Nigel Farage walking away from his project, and it's a picture, it's a film of the Joker, from the Batman villain, running away from an exploding building. Very interesting. Kings
even that's interesting.
Very interesting.
That he resigned.
Yes.
He resigned after
after the
winning
vote.
the vote.
Interesting. Very.
What
interesting.
is it that he is expecting?
Yes.
That he wants to be out of the firing line. Why is he taking himself out of the firing line when he's won the referendum?
Indeed.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Indeed, brother leader. All right.
Watch this piece.
Kings and Queens, this has been Africa Speaks with Alkebu-Lan. Tune in next week as we continue to talk it straight and make it plain. Up next, we have Brother SG Vibes. Around here we say, Tendai Mwari.
Happy Earth Day, brother leader.
Tatenda.
Oh, ancestors, blacker than 1,000 midnights, African ancestors, it is to you that we, your children, give respect and honor.